Hello, friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixieland. My name's Amy. I'm an ordained minister, and we are in Bible study. We are in the NIV, we are in the book of Ezekiel, and we are in chapter 40, the new temple area. In the 25th year of our exile, at the beginning of the year, on the 10th of the month, in the 14th year after the fall of the city, on that very day, the hand of the Lord was upon me, and he took me there. In visions of God, he took me to the land of Israel and set me on a very high mountain on whose south side were some buildings that looked like a city. He took me there, and I saw a man whose appearance was like bronze. He was standing in the gateway with a linen cord and a measuring rod in his hand. The man said to me, "Son of man, look with your eyes and hear with your ears, and pay attention to everything I am going to show you, for this is why you have been brought here. Tell the house of Israel everything you see." Now, if you go into any kind of angel lore, they'll tell you that this is, the theory is this is Metatron, who was Enoch, bodily risen. There's no particular reason for that belief system, and there's also nothing that can dispute it either. So we don't really know. Now, it would make sense because Enoch is, like a great-grandfather of Noah. So then this would be a great-grandfather of Ezekiel. So then the ability to talk to him, but we're not really supposed to talk to the dead. Although Enoch's not really dead if he bodily rose. And either way, God sent this person, so Enoch was supposed to listen, whoever he is. The east gate to the outer court. I saw a wall completely surrounding the temple area. The length of the measuring rod in the man's hand was 6 long cubits, each of which was a cubit and a handbreadth. Now we got two different things here. A cubit and a handbreadth each have their own footnotes. A common cubit was about 1.5 feet, or about 1.5 meters. So you have a thing, reference. And a handbreadth is about 3 inches or 8 centimeters. He measured the wall. It was 1 measuring rod thick and 1 rod high. Then he went to the gate facing east. He climbed the steps and measured the threshold of the gate. It was 1 rod deep. See in the Septuagint, that's Greek, and in the Hebrew, deep, the first threshold, 1 rod deep. So more than 1 threshold in some of these versions. The alcoves for the guards were 1 rod long and 1 rod wide, so a cube, and projecting walls between the alcoves were 5 cubits thick, and the threshold of the gate next to the portico facing the temple was 1 rod deep. So remember, they have guards at the door because not everybody could just walk into the temple. You had to be ritualistically clean to go to temple. Like you had to have gone through like a mikveh bath and things. Then he measured the portico of the gateway. It, got a footnote of D, many Hebrew manuscripts, the Septuagint, that's Greek, the Vulgate, which is Latin, the Syriac, which is Syrian, gateway facing the temple was 1 rod deep. Then he measured the portico of the gateway. It was 8 cubits deep, and its jambs were 2 cubits thick. The portico of the gateway faced the temple. Inside the east gate were 3 alcoves on each side. The 3 had the same measurements, and the faces of the projecting walls on each side had the same measurements. Then he measured the width of the entrance to the gateway. It was 10 cubits, and its length was 13 cubits. In front of each alcove was a wall 1 cubit high, and the alcoves were 6 cubits square. Then he measured the gateway from the top of the rear wall of one of the alcoves to the top of the opposite one. The distance was 25 cubits from one parapet opening to the opposite one. He measured along the faces of the projecting walls all around inside of the gateway 60 cubits. The measurement was up to the portico. Let's go to footnote an E. In the Septuagint, which is Greek, and in the Hebrew, projecting wall instead of portico. Projecting wall facing the courtyard. So it's facing the portico. Facing the courtyard. Courtyard has a footnote of F. The meaning of this in Hebrew is uncertain. Okay, they don't know if it was the courtyard in the way we think of as a courtyard. The distance from the entrance of the gateway to the far end of its portico was 50 cubits. The alcoves and the projecting walls inside the gateway were surmounted by narrow parapet openings all around, as was the portico. The openings all around faced inward. The faces of the projecting walls were decorated with palm trees. I mean, for me, my brain is, drawing a blueprint in my head because of what my job is. And this rather sounds like a job I've literally had, following around some, architect or engineer with a notepad and a blueprint, writing down dimensions that they're calling off with a tape measure. And I've literally had that job. The outer court. Then he brought me into the outer court. There I saw some rooms and a pavement that had been constructed all around the court. There were 30 rooms along the pavement. It abutted the sides of the gateway and was as wide as they were long. This was the lower pavement. Then he measured the distance from the inside of the lower gateway to the outside of the inner court. It was 100 cubits on the east side as well as on the north gate. Then he measured the length and the width of the gate facing north, leading into the outer court. Its alcoves, 3 on each side, its projecting walls, and its porticos had the same measurements as those of the first gateway. It was 50 cubits long and 25 cubits wide. Its openings, its porticos, and its palm tree decorations had the same measurements as those facing the gate facing east. 7 steps led up to it. With its porticos opposite of them, there was a gate to the inner court facing the north gate, just as there was on the east. He measured from one gate to the opposite one. It was 100 cubits. The south gate. Then he led me to the south side, and I saw a gate facing south. He measured its jambs and its porticos, and they had the same measurements as the others. The gateway and its porticos had narrow openings all around, like the openings of the others. It was 50 cubits long and 25 cubits wide. 7 steps led up to it, with its portico opposite of them. It had palm tree decorations on the faces of the projecting walls on each side. The inner court also had a gate facing south, and he measured from this gate to its outer gate on the south side. It was 100 cubits. The gates to the inner court. Then he brought me to the inner court through the south gate, and he measured the south gate. It had the same measurement as the others. Its alcoves, its projecting walls, and its porticos had the same measurement as the others. The gateway and its porticos and had openings all around. It was 50 cubits long and 25 cubits wide. The porticos of the gateways around the inner court were 25 cubits wide and 5 cubits deep. The porticos faced the outer court. Palm trees decorated its jambs, and 8 steps led up to it. Then he brought me to the inner court on the east side, and he measured the gateway. It had the same measurement as the others. Its alcoves, its projecting walls, and its porticos had the same measurements as the others. The gateway and its porticos had openings all around. It was 50 cubits long and 25 cubits wide. The portico had its portico faced the outer court. Palm trees decorated the jambs on either side, and 8 steps led up to it. So everything is in perfect symmetry in this temple, in its layout. Every single one of these gates, every single one of these porticos, everything's in symmetry. They make a very interesting rectangular shapes, looking down from above. Then he brought me to the north gate and measured it. It had the same measurements as the others, as did its alcoves, its projecting walls, and its porticos. It had openings all around. It was 50 cubits long and 25 cubits wide. Its portico, the Septuagint, that's Greek, and the Hebrew, jambs, faced each other, faced the outer court. Its portico, or jambs, faced the outer court. Palm trees decorated the jambs on either side, and 8 steps led up to it. So still in symmetry with everything else. The rooms for preparing sacrifices. A room with a doorway by the portico in each of the inner gateways where the burnt offerings were washed. In the portico of the gateways were 2 tables on each side, on which the burnt offerings, sin offerings, and guilt offerings were slaughtered. By the outside wall of the portico of the gateway, near the steps of the entrance to the north gateway, were 2 tables, and on the other side of the steps were 2 tables. So there were 4 tables on one side of the gateway and 4 on the other, 8 tables in all, on which sacrifices were slaughtered. There were also 4 tables of dressed stone for the burnt offerings, each a cubit and a half long, a cubit and a half wide, and a cubit high. On them were placed the utensils for slaughtering the burnt offerings and other sacrifices, and the double-pronged hooks, each a handbreadth long. They were attached to the wall all around, and the tables were for the flesh of the offerings. So they had a system for their sacrifice of the animals. Room for the priests. Outside the inner gate with the inner court were 2 rooms, one at the side of the north gate facing south, and another at the side of the south gate facing north. So you have one, it's got a footnote of B, and the Septuagint Hebrew were rooms for singers, which were at the south side of the north gate facing south, and another at the side of the south gate, got a footnote of C, in the Septuagint, that's Greek and Hebrew, east, facing north. He said to me, the room facing south is for the high priests who have charge of the temple, and the room facing north is for the priests who have charge of the altar. These are the sons of Zadok, who are the only Levites who may draw near to the Lord to minister before him. Due to a lot of genetic stuff, tests that have been done, pretty much like all the Ashkenazi that are left from the line of Zadok. Then he measured the court. It was square, 100 cubits long and 100 cubits wide, and the altar was in front of the temple. He brought me to the portico of the temple, and he measured the jambs of the portico. They were 5 cubits wide on either side. The width of the entrance was 14 cubits, and its projected walls there were, got a footnote of D, Septuagint in Hebrew, entrance was, Septuagint being Greek. Yeah, hold on. Right? That's what I just read. Yes. I want to make sure I didn't lose my spot. The projecting walls were 3 cubits wide on either side. The portico was 20 cubits wide and 12 cubits from front to back. It was reached by a flight of stairs, footnote of F. Hebrew and Septuagint, again, that's Greek, that's 10 steps led up to it, to that flight of stairs. Okay, and I missed here in the verse 49. The portico was 20 cubits wide and 12 cubits. There's some versions, the Greek says 11, not 12 cubits, from the front to the back. It was reached by a flight of stairs, which is 10 steps in this version, and there were pillars on each side of the jambs. Now this continues through chapter 41, so I hope you will join me there.